I am curious about your relationship before CULA, because I have to tell you, like, seeing you interact with each other now, you seem like best friends, you know?
Sisters.
Like
Sisters.
sisters, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, right, right. And so like how well did you know each other before this? Like, were you guys like total buds, or did sort of the relationship
No.
evolve as CULA evolved?
Yes. Because we
Hmm.
didn't, like I said, we knew each other from select council. And I'm sure Gary would in the common denominator there, because I know, don't choke on these words when I say it, but I'm a shy extrovert. So Lily came out of the, so no
What
laughing,
does that
right?
what does that mean?
It means that, like you said, when you first saw that I was like someone to know in the credit union world, because I'm in my little corner, I'm doing things, but I'm not as, while I'm an extrovert, I'm not that person. Lily's got a lot more confidence than I have or had. And now I have it. And like I said, I can be a role model and I can share my story, but I wasn't always like this. Lily and I talk about that. She's always been that. And I think it's how you were brought up and what that looks like. I was like I was a slow churn, right? But I'm forever grateful for, don't get emotional, say it, Lily, right?
Mhm.
For Lily
Yes.
and this, because when I look at our members and I literally walked in their shoes, I see Linda's, I see Lily's. How do we all, my adjective, my descriptor is connector. How do we bring all these different universes together and make them feel welcome?
So let me introduce you both. So first we have Lily Newfarmer, President and CEO of Tarrant County's Credit Union, former or current member of the Small Credit Union Committee
Current.
at America's Credit Union. Okay,
Still.
so you're still on there.
Yeah.
And also current and former member of a lot of industry organizations up and down the spectrum. And I'm going to ask you about that after I'm done with introductions. So more on
Okay.
that. But we also have Linda White, the executive director of the Credit Union Women's Leadership Alliance.
You
Yes,
got
did I
that
say that right?
right. Yes, you did, do.
Credit
Yes.
Union. I think it's because we say CULA so much that
I
it's like
know.
you when you say it out loud. Okay, let me say it again. We also have Linda White of the Credit Union Women's Leadership Alliance, and also the previous president and CEO of Upward Credit Union. Thank you so much to both of you for joining us this afternoon.
Well, hey, it's going to
Thanks
be a
for
good
having
time.
us.
Yes. Okay, so there's a lot of ways we can take this conversation, but the first thing that I thought of when I was thinking about this discussion was that both of you, something that you have in common is that you both have been really involved in the credit union community, both at sort of the national level, but I think also at the local level, throughout your careers. And it got me thinking, where did that start? And, what started you to get involved in different credit union organizations outside of your work running your credit unions?
Well, geez, we both don't want to interrupt each other. So
Go,
neither
Linda.
one of us. So I'll start. I tell people, like, I started out with different organizations starting at the chapter level at my credit union. I think for anybody that ever wants to know, like, what do you do and how do you get out there? The first thing is to be involved in chapters. And that led to being involved with being on the Shapiro Committee for the California Nevada Credit Union Leagues, being chair of that, then being one of the co-leaders of the first sister society for the Global Women's Leadership Network, and then just being on the True stage. What do we call that, council? Oh my gosh, Lily.
Select, the
Thank you.
select
Select
council.
council.
Yeah. Yeah.
And yeah, got to be chair of that for a couple years. And then Lily tapping me on the shoulder saying, hey, we got this thing we want to think about. And then
Okay, so those are the things that you've been a part of, but why? Like, why did you get involved? How did you make the decision that you needed to do something outside of your credit union?
because, well, it's a whole universe. The credit is its own little universe. How do you learn? And with credit unions that share, and then to be able to learn from other people. And then as we go into it, how do we pay it forward? So like in my role, I'm now retired from the credit union and I like lopped into being the executive director of CUWLA, but how do I pay it forward? There's being the executive director, I get to talk to members all the time, and that warms my heart, because I've literally walked in their shoes. So I
Yeah.
think that's it, to pay it
Very
forward,
helpful.
to
Mhm.
learn and to pay it forward.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. I mean, I do feel like that's one sort of commonality I hear among successful leaders of credit unions is sort of that involvement in the credit union space. It does take a lot of time, and I always, sort of appreciate and am in sort of awe of especially CEOs of smaller credit unions who, live their shops and spend a lot of time running their own credit unions, but then still somehow find a way to get involved, in these other organizations. It's really amazing. So Lily, how about yourself? Where did it start and why'd you do it?
Yeah, I think it's a sort of special set of crazy for me, because I'm like, oh yeah, I can do that. And later on, I'm like, what is wrong with me? But I started. I think it started for me was when I went through Southwest CUNA Management School, and they asked me to come back to mentor, and then that led to, I think, 18 years worth of just even being on faculty, right? And realizing that I can make a difference, number one. And then just as I kept poking folks and organizations around, you need small credit union representation on your board. That's great that what you're doing. You need a small credit union voice. And I didn't mean necessarily my voice, but just kept bringing that to the forefront. And then eventually folks said, are you ready to put your mouth where your money, or your money, and I was like, oh, okay. And so honestly, I always look at it as a way of, can I add value? There's a lot of times that I'm like, I love that, but I don't know if I can add value. But then I also need to look at it the flip side, Tom, is what value can I gain and bring it back to my shop? And in the end, that's sort of the whole, because I hang around and I'm on certain boards that have very large credit union representation, right? And because of their scale and talent and everything else, they're doing some cool stuff. And so I'm like, well, even if I can scale that down, what little nugget or large nugget can I bring back to my shop and make it work? So it's sort of self-serving as well, right? But it's on both sides of that spectrum, sharing and then taking. But certainly if I feel like I can't contribute in any way or add value, then I really don't have time. And most of the boards I serve on are working boards. That's that special sort of crazy. So it's just not just come to a board meeting every month. It's here's 5 committees you're also on. And so there are times that it's a lot, but honestly, I love it so much that it doesn't feel like work.
Yeah. Yeah, I've never thought about that, as a smaller credit union. And I mean, does that like offend you? Like, so when I was working for CUNA and we talked about small credit unions, sometimes leaders would sort of balk at the label of small. So random question, does that bother you to use that word, or do you own it? How do you feel about the word small?
You know, I own it, and I will say this: there have been times that I have been asked, and I think it's asked not to my face as well, but why are you wasting your talent at a small credit? Right?
Mm,
And I've never seen it that way. First and foremost, my board is very good to me, but as far as the pay scale and what have you, right? But also, I I want to. Not saying that not running a larger credit union wouldn't bring value and wouldn't, you know, um, do all those wonderful things for your members and your team. But for me, this is exactly where my skill set, my talent needs shines, or it is the best for my team and my members. So I don't take offense to it. I actually I own it, but I also gives me an opportunity to share why it's just a number. It's the mindset. And I say that a lot. If you start every conversation with oh, I'm just a little, then you're already predisposing yourself to that convo, right? Now, if it works in your favor, if you're talking to a regulator, well, I'm just a that's different. But don't start every conversation with I'm just a little. Act
Right.
like you're the biggest, baddest ass in the room. And, people tend to be shocked when they figure out or learn the asset size of my credit union.
Right.
yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. But I asked because you talked about sort of being one of the smaller credit unions on a lot of the boards that you serve. And so do you feel that sort of like you don't belong or like you can't contribute in the way some of these larger credit unions or institutions can because they are doing some incredible things
Yeah.
that they can do because they have the resources, like they can hire the big names and invest in the big technology. So yeah, I mean, is there sort of that imposter syndrome that you feel?
On the Feline board, I am by far the smallest credit union. I think I'm the smallest for maybe in the history. I don't know. But so I have those conversations with Mark Meyer and say, look, I'm never going to be able to write a big dang check, as he would put it, right? I need to be able to add value. And because Feline is a small organization as well, at the very least, I can relate and I can say, well, what about capacity? There, you only have X amount of employees. And so I think you can always find a way to add value. And certainly I would imagine the chair of the organization might say, yeah, we thought this might be good. And so far that isn't the case. Same thing when I was on the NCUF board. I think there's always a way for you to have a voice and add value, right? So
I try to remember them when I was in situations like that, that somebody appointed or referred me to be on that committee or that board. So to not feel like an imposter, but to like show up. Because I used to be on our state regulator advisory committee, which was a big deal, and representing small credit unions. And then you're in this room with $25 billion credit union CEOs and remembering why you're there. And I have had to kind of like, I'm gonna say like prove that I need to be there. But when you're in a meeting with two CEOs and one is the person that's really kind of helped you get there, and the other one's kind of like, I'm not worthy. Sometimes you're kind of going to go, you know what, I can contribute to that conversation and know that you do belong there.
Yeah, Linda, one of the first times that I sort of became aware of you, I don't know, found out that you were a player in the industry, I guess you could say, was when you were the chair of the CEO Council. Right? Weren't you the
I
chairperson
was
of
on the executive
the
committee
CUNA?
for the CEO council. I was on the executive committee.
You weren't the chair of it?
No, no, no.
you had to
No,
think about it.
not the
I
chair.
know. I kind of like was
Okay.
no.
Well, either way, I mean, you were one of the more vocal and visible
Yeah.
people, on that group. And what's interesting about that is just like a little inside sort of baseball with CUNA is that the councils was never really that focused on small credit unions, and
Sweet
that's
spot was
because
500 million.
yeah, and for maybe a good reason. You have different disciplines that are much more. Um, you have larger credit unions that sort of have all these different disciplines, and sort of much more narrow focused sort of professions within a credit union versus a small credit union where you might have one person that does three different jobs.
Right.
Well, it's much more broad and focused, and so I kind of understand that. But you were a small credit union representative in that group, and so
Yeah.
just curious to know what your experience was with councils because I mean, I loved the councils.
Yeah.
I thought it
I
was
do
one of the
too.
most valuable things that we did at the old association. And so just curious about your experience there. And do you think small credit unions should get more involved in that
Yeah,
space?
that's a great question because when I was on there, and again, somebody referred me from a large credit union because they had a vacancy and said, I know somebody because they wanted to have somebody from a smaller credit union.
Right.
And being on that, I learned a lot that the sweet spot for that group is 500 million. And it's like, okay, but that doesn't mean that small credit unions don't want to come and hear what you're having to talk about. So that I did get to represent. And again, having someone that advocates and pushes you, opens the door and helps push you through it is like, okay, I belong here. Let me have that conversation. And it really did work to their benefit to be able to let them know that some of the content, don't think that small credit unions don't need to hear what you're talking about. We need to hear that too. And I think where the two shall meet was when we were in Santa Fe with our CUWLA conference, and we were able to dovetail and be in the same city that they were, that their attendance increased because we had members that could attend both because it was in the same location. And it's a lot of valuable information all CEOs need to hear.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Lily, you were gonna follow up?
I just think it's also an attitude. I really do. You know, I
Yeah.
said the mindset, but at least at my shop, we don't play JV ball. I mean, honestly, we can't
Mm.
afford to. And so we're the varsity team, and that's our attitude. It's how we treat our members. It's how we treat our team members. And I think it's just critically important that we keep sharing that message with smaller credit unions to come in already that you're not the JV bench player or what have you, right? And so, yeah, um, it's a hard message because it is intimidating and it is a big job and it is scary. It's not for the faint of heart, right? On any given day, like
Yeah.
today, I've switched 5 different things that when I sat down for this, I thought, oh, wait, what are we talking about? And made sure I didn't talk about liquidity or the flavor of the day. So I just really think you need to lean in. Small creams need to lead in with that. We're the mouse that roars, and we're going to kick butt, and whatever that looks for our members and for our team.
Yeah, and I do think the mentality piece is really important, and it sort of reminds me of kind of the original purpose of CULA is, as we think about sort of the formation of that group. But for small credit unions, something that has always resonated with me is something that Linda Bodie said. I think I think it was maybe during her Wagner Award speech, or maybe she just said it to me in passing. Was that she, as a small credit union, can't um, God, I need to get this down because I bring it up all the time and I always screw it up. But basically, there's nothing that she can't do that a large credit union can do, right? Large
Mhm.
credit unions can do
That's right.
a lot of stuff, but small credit unions can do them in maybe creative ways. And
Mhm.
I just have always appreciated that mentality and just this idea that, it doesn't matter how big you are, how small you are. It's just about just going out there and doing the work. And you know, just kicking ass. So I
Right.
really appreciate that. And so sort of how I think of that as it relates to CULA is that, one of those issues that we talked about or that you all talked about in that first meeting in Fort Worth at your offices, Lily, was the confidence that female leaders of credit unions have or don't have. And so that sort of got me thinking about kind of the beginnings of CULA and, Lily, like where did it come from? Like when was the first time you thought about forming this organization? And, what convinced you that this was something that you needed to establish?
Well, I have um, female CEOs of much that are friends of mine, dear friends of mine that run much, much bigger credit unions. And we vacation together and we hang out together. And they belong to an organization. Many of them belong to an organization for women who run very large credit unions. Different needs, different, I get all that. But I would hear them talk about what tools they were getting, right? And getting it in their tool belts and helping them run their successful credit unions. And every time I would think, and I couldn't be part of that conversation because I didn't run, was it in that group, but I would remember just listening. Then my takeaways would be, it would be so great if there was something like that for women who run small credit unions. And for 2 years, it just rummaged around up in my brain. And I didn't know how to scale that, Tom, was my biggest thing, because there's much fewer women who run large credit unions. So it was a very doable network that they created. Um,
Right.
there's, I think, still maybe over 2,000 or close to 2,000 women who run small credit unions. And I didn't want it to just be a conference. Like I really
Mm.
wanted that rub to be there as far as collaboration and networking. And so that's sort of where it was. And it really was just a notion or a pipe dream because I didn't see how I could pull something off like that myself, right? Or how that could even come to fruition. And then that was just the conversation with Gary Singleton one evening while at the GAC. And he happened to sit next to me at a dinner and we started chatting. And you know how he is. He's so inquisitive and such a great listener. And I said, oh, God, this has been on my mind, Gary. And he listened and then he got all excited and said, you know what, Lily, I can still see his face. He goes, I think CUNY Mutual Group, well, True Stage, would really could be interested in supporting something like that. And I'm like, really? So we were so excited, it was toward the end of dinner, that we walked back to the hotel and it was raining. Everyone else kind of got in their Ubers, and then Gary said, do you know Tom Saycash? And I said, I don't. And that's when he said, well, he oversees a small credit. Let's make a connection. I think maybe you and I met the next day or sometime in there for lunch.
Yeah. Yeah. There
To
was
chat about this notion, right?
Yes, yeah, yeah. So my side of the story that maybe you haven't heard before is that like 2 weeks before that GAC, I'm walking down the hall in the old CUNA office building, and Mike Shank stops me. And Mike Shank, I think, used to serve on the filing board with
Still
you,
does.
right? Still does. Okay.
Mhm.
He stops me and he's like, Tom, do you know who Lily Newfarmer is? And I'm like, no, I've never heard of her. He's like, Tom, you got to meet her. You got to meet this person. She is amazing.
Oh,
She's absolutely amazing. I sat next to her at a dinner last night, and she's just doing amazing things with her credit union. You got to meet her. So I'm like, okay. And
wow.
so, GAC rolls around, and I bring a bunch of credit unions out to like meals during GAC, or I used to do that. And so when I heard that you were, the person to meet, I was like, okay, I got to invite Lily to one of these meals. And so I invited you. I think Karma Parrish was
Karma.
at our table.
Yeah.
I forget who
Dale.
else. Maybe.
Dale Hansard.
Oh, that's right. Yes, Dale was there too. Yeah, yeah. And we
Remember.
had a nice lunch. And then on the way back from that lunch is when you first brought the idea up to me. And this must have been like the day after you talked
It
to
was.
Gary.
Uh-huh.
And so, like, what perfect timing, and what a
Yeah.
coincidence that this all sort of worked out together. But
Serendipitous,
yeah,
It's
right?
going to
yeah,
be like,
yeah,
where were you when? I
Meant,
remember
meant, meant
when.
to be, meant to
Ah,
be.
yes,
And
yeah,
then we
yeah,
hit the
yeah,
floor running, Tom. And then it was just like, oh, okay, well, here we go.
yeah, 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 yeah. So when you think back about, that first thought, and sort of the first sort of inklings of the potential for an organization like this, and now you see where CUWLA has come and where it is now, like,
Yeah.
how do you feel
Yeah.
about like that accomplishment? Like, where does
Yeah.
it rate for you in your career?
It's at the top, no doubt. It is. So it's a labor of love, right? And certainly the other 12 founders um, moved the needle because it was a lot. While we're trying to run our small organizations, also become a 501c, all incorporate, get our bio. It was a lot. But I will say what gives me such great joy is not just where we started, where we're at, but the potential for the future is super exciting. Honestly, sometimes I think so when Linda talks, sometimes she gets emotional. Like we'll be and I'm like, I literally do this. Why are you crying? You're still crying. Stop crying. Stop crying. I'm gonna hurt you. So I'm just right. But honestly, there are times that I will start talking, like if I'm in front of a CUWLA audience, and I could feel this little bubble up. So that for me, because I don't do that often, that for me is my signal that this is a heart matter for me, right? So I call it a labor of love, but it's also realizing the impact that this organization is having on women who run small credit unions, on our members. And for some, it's a lifeline, and that's huge because then ultimately it's a lifeline for their members and for the organization and for the movement entirely, right? So that's pretty cool. I'm really excited about it, but let's be real. It could still just be a pipe dream. It could have all fallen apart if the other 12 ladies didn't say, and you and Jess and Gary and the folks that threw money at us from the very beginning just to help us turn on the lights. They didn't even really know what we were about. Scott Butterfield with your credit union partner, just on a conversation, I was chatting with him and Allison about it. We were just starting and he said, we're a small organization too, but we've had a good year, wrote our first check. Without
Yeah,
fully, I explained the purpose, but it was half baked still, right? So
yeah,
it took a village, but you know what, Tom, it's really been amazing.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, it's like right up there with all of the industry organizations that you now talk about, and you hear from, as being sort of the influencers in the industry, right? And it happened so fast, which is, really amazing.
Speaks
But
to
I
the
think
need,
yeah,
right?
exactly. I think that that totally shows you that there was a huge gap
Right.
in the industry for an organization like this. Now, Linda, we can't sell Linda short here. Linda, you've been there since the beginning. You weren't at that lunch, maybe, or you weren't
No, but
walking in
I
the
remember, I
rain
like to
with
tell
Gary.
you, I wasn't at the lunch or the dinner, but I remember walking down the stairs at the World Council, the reception, and Lily stopping me on the stairs and saying, "Hey, we've got this thing." And I looked at Jason kind of going, what? Well, it was one of those FOMO. I gotta go. Like it was Lily. It's like, yeah, I think I had met her before when I was on Select Council. She was coming off when I
Okay.
was coming on. And it was like, and then met Gary, and Gary's kind of like, "Oh, I heard your name from this person and this person." So then it just kind of all bubbled up. But
Yeah, I am curious about your relationship before CUWLA, because I have to tell you, like, seeing you interact with each other now, you seem like best friends,
Sisters,
like
sisters.
sisters,
yeah,
Yeah, right, right. And so like, how well did you know each other before this? Like, were you guys like total buds, or did sort of the relationship
no,
evolve as CULA evolved?
yes. Because we didn't,
Hmm.
like I said, we knew each other from a Select Council. And I'm sure Gary would in the common denominator there, because I know, don't choke on these words when I say it, but I'm a shy extrovert. So Lily came out of the, no
What
laughing,
does that
right?
what does that mean?
It means that, like you said, when you first saw that I was like someone to know in the crediting world, because I'm in my little corner, I'm doing things, but I'm not, while I'm an extrovert, I'm not that person. Lily's got a lot more confidence than I have or had. And now I have it. And like I said, I can be a role model and I can share my story, but I wasn't always like this. Lily and I talk about that. She's always been that. And I think it's how you were brought up and what that looks like. I was like I was a slow churn, right? But I'm forever grateful for, don't get emotional, say it, Lily, right? For Lily and this, because when I look at our members and I literally walked in their shoes, I see Linda's, I see Lily's. How do we all, my adjective, my descriptor is connector. How do we bring all these different universes together and make them feel welcome? Okay, so,
Yeah.
so that's my superpower, is to kind
Here
of
it
like,
comes.
right? No, I'm not. No, that's why I think, right? But it's true. And when I see like we're getting so busy, I don't have time to look at all of the conversations women are having, the members are having on Basecamp. But when I do look, I'm going, man, just like they feel so embraced and heard and engaged, that when I have somebody who may decide not to renew their membership, I'm thinking, we're a nonprofit. For the nominal membership dues, you could just really help us to continue to go forward. Maybe it's not for you today, but there is someone out there. And as Lily says, it may not be for everybody. I take it personally. Right? And she goes, maybe this isn't their jam. And I'm like, fair enough, because we have a lot of active members. I had somebody email me the other day about, "Hey, Linda, do you know this?" I said, "Have you put that out on Basecamp with the peers? Does somebody know?" Like, "No, I haven't." And they put it out there, and right away somebody says, "I have somebody that can help you," like that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's just because there is the humility and the vulnerability that they share, is to support each other. And maybe you're giving today and sometimes you're taking. It depends on what your needs are.
Sure. It is really shocking to me to hear you say that you don't consider yourself, or at least you didn't consider yourself, to be like a confident person, because you definitely come off that way.
Well,
And
I
so,
am now.
well, you are now. So like, what was sort of the tipping point? Was it because of your, like, the network that was built through CULA, or were there people in your, who sort of came along in your career that sort of helped you get
Yeah. Yeah.
that
I
for
think it's
yourself?
people who saw things in me that I didn't see in myself. CUNA
Mm,
Management School, hands down, was like a tipping point for me personally, with some stuff in my personal life. It was like, I don't need this relationship anymore. It's really that. That's first. And then, a lot of people know Barry Gillette, who was the CEO of San Mateo Credit Union years ago. He opened a lot of doors for me. Sue Mitchell is somebody I've known, but it's having people that kind of open this door and they see something in you that you didn't see. I always talk about it being spaghetti thrown at the wall, knowing that when it peels off, I'll help pick it up. And then how do you have that? And that's really that's kind of my role today too. It's just kind of like, here, this needs to be done, this needs to be done, this needs to be done. And I keep doing it. Everyone says, I don't know how you do it. If I stop to think about it, I will cry, right? So I just keep doing it. And then how do we, as an organization, what does that look like? And the board's very conscientious of that, the help that we need to keep going forward. Because I did retire from my crediting because I could, and I really love that. But what we do for our CUWLA members is, yeah, I love it.
Yeah. Well, it's very obvious. And, you know, I've always been a believer that if you're passionate about something, that gives you the best chance of success in whatever it is that you do, right? You're gonna give more energy, you're gonna give more of yourself to the things that you care about. And
Mhm.
so it's more evidence of why CUWLA has been successful, because clearly it's been a passion project for both of you. And like you can just see it all over the organization, from the conference to the reception at GAC to, you know, all the programming that you put on. Like it definitely comes from a place of love and also experience, you know, because you see yourself in a lot of these up and coming CEOs, you know, who are sort of going through what you went through earlier in your career. So it's really beautiful. Wow, super cool. So I wanted to talk about CUWLA coaching. I know that program has still been sort of front and center for y'all.
Yeah.
You know, where is it? And, you know, as we talk about, you know, empowering and, you know, getting the next generation of leaders ready for those bigger roles in the industry, what a great program to sort of springboard so many of those folks. Like, where is it now, and where is it going into the future?
Well, I'll talk about where it is now and the future. Well, Lily, we can both ping pong on that. We're in our 4th year. This will be our 4th year with a cohort. And along the ways, it's like we've gotten feedback from board members or cohorts, and we're refining it. So this year we've brought on somebody else to help. Tracy Kenyon oversees that program for us. And then last year we brought on Carolyn Reeves, who used to work with Schools First, and the coaching program is being sponsored by Schools First. So we're forever grateful for Bill Cheney and that team for seeing that in education, credit union, to help support this as we bring up the leaders. We've done, like, I'm going to say a revision. We've not revamped completely. We've cleaned up the materials to make it more for our members. It was written for us with the help of CUNY Mutual at the time. And as we've done it, like gone through it each year, we kind of see what resonates with the members and got feedback from members and specifically board members that were part of our cohort to kind of going, what makes sense, what doesn't make sense for us. And one of the things when I was working with Tracy and Carolyn on what kind of revisions we need to make, it's while it's called coaching, it's CUWLA coaching. Because in the world of coaching, you have executive coaches that cost thousands and thousands of dollars. You're getting that type of value, but you don't have you're having industry leaders that are your coaches. So it's CUWLA coaching. It's not executive coaching. It's not mentoring. So we like to use the words together so people don't get confused and we're not like saying something. And the word men is a mentoring. And that's clearly how we hang up with CUWLA coaching. I said that the other day on a call and they're like, really? I'm like, somebody else back me up. That's really how it can be. And it is. So it is in this year.
I did not know that. I
I didn't
honestly did
either.
not know that.
I don't even
Yeah.
remember that, but they
But
explained
Jan
what happened.
supported me, so I know I'm not crazy. If right,
Yeah, yeah.
for sure. So it's CUWLA coaching. It's like it kind of goes together. This being the 4th year, you know, the first year was great. Everybody was gung ho. Then it's like, do you get people to apply? Then I'm really getting people to apply to be in the cohort. They're like, oh, I've been in like for a long time. And it's like, there's never not a good time. Like, why did I become a DE after 40 years of my career? Because it's never too late. You could be a CEO for 2 months or 20 years. It's for you. Something I'm super excited about is that applications haven't even gone out yet. And I already have a list of people that want to be in the cohort. That is awesome.
Nice.
Right?
On the coach, on the executive, sorry, I forget the nomenclature, but like to be coaches or to be
no, to be an executive participant in CUWLA coaching.
Okay.
That is so to be like a member, we call them executive participants. We don't call them coachees or mentees, right? That's cool. This is probably the first year I've had that. I already have a waiting list of people to make sure when the applications are out, that they get their applications in, and tenured people. So that's awesome.
That's awesome. That's really great. Okay, so just to rewind a little bit, how did it start? Like, what was what did the first cohort look like, and kind of what were the goals? And then you mentioned that there could be sort of a new evolution to it down the road. What does that look like?
Well, so to go back, the competencies are still there. So when the program was written, there are 7 competencies that the executive participants gets to lean into to identify which area they want to work on, which competency. Those are still there. That is all still there. That framework's all still there. The minor differences were just kind of cleaning up some language. And there was like a self-assessment they were doing that we never used when we were doing the matches with our coaches. So we got rid of that. It was extra work. The feedback from the cohort was like, why? But they do need to identify what to. We said, instead of being 3, the coaches and the cohort said 3 were too many to focus on. 1 to 2 areas from the 7 competencies that they want to focus on. Then they're matched up with their coaches, and the coaches are people from the industry that, well, we've had Jill Tomlin from America's Credit Unions. She's been a coach every year since we started. So while she doesn't work in a credit union, her experience with credit union and her, structure, and she brings a lot to the table. We've had people in finance from True Stage. So if we have a member that's wanting to work on financial acumen, then we've got something to match up with them. We've had SVPs from $1 billion credit unions in HR. So we have different competencies to match up with members based on what they're wanting to kind of hone in on.
Yeah. Okay. That's fantastic.
I want to back up real quick and just share that CUWLA coaching was created specifically for CUWLA. It's wasn't off the shelf. It wasn't something, but Angela Sabali, who, God rest her soul, has passed since, but she was a very well-known professional executive coach, and she was working with CUNA Mutual Group at the time and with Gary Singleton. And True Stage said, well, look, we'll foot that bill. We'll create the program. And Gary and her, and others helped. Linda and a couple of other founders helped get this around the needs of what, we think leaders of small credit, women in particular, what a coaching program could look like to meet their needs. So it is unique in every facet. And we've tweaked it along the way because you have to, right? Just to keep it relevant. It's what Linda is sharing. Now we're looking at ways to, how do we offer, this to others, if you will. That might be a segue.
Okay.
So, we are considering we had our strategic business planning session last year for 25 through 27, right? So we're focusing on those 3 years. And so one of the initiatives is around, we recognize that there are members of ours who have C-suite or VPs or managers or branch managers or just folks in leadership roles, women in leadership roles at their shop that might be the next one to move up right into that seat. And how can we develop them? And can CUWLA coaching be part of that? Because today it's only for our members and CEOs, because our members are CEOs. Can we create a category C field of membership, if you will, right? To offer CUWLA. And then we don't want to call it CUWLA 2.0, but we need to make sure the safe space that we currently have for CUWLA members, CEOs of small credit unions, is not eroded. That's a huge part of our purpose. So how do we add on another layer, right, without it diminishing what we offer our members now? And so it could be through the CUWLA coaching program. Maybe there's an organization that can help us with that initiative. And so, because really, it's only Linda, and she's got various, she has various folks and organizations that help her, right? That we have co-partnered or working part-time, and but the job is enormous, and it's to the point where I'm like, Linda, you can't do this by yourself. And so today, if we had a staff of 4 or 5, there would already be this sort of C-level membership. But we also, again, capacity. I don't want to kill her. We love her. We want her to stay, right? She's the main reason that we're really able to that the needle is moving, if you will. And so her focus is on CUWLA. And I love CUWLA, y'all know I do, but my focus can't just be on CUWLA. I would probably lose my real job if it was. So that speaks a little bit to the future, Tom, but I think that's probably, Linda, when you say a year or two out before we can really consider that happening. It certainly won't be this year.
Yeah, and we, because it, like Lily said, that's something that's been talked about. And there's two different things. You were asking about the coaching part, and the coaching part and C-suite or next level membership. You know, what do those two, and how, and like Lily said, the two would not cross. So if we do have another layer of membership, they would, we use Basecamp for our members to communicate. They would be a different project in there for them to have that conversation. And
Sure.
and that is, you know, somewhere in that conversation. And I had two people today that I had to kind of, they aren't the CEOs, but they are from a credit under 500 million and are in like the senior executive position, and they were very disappointed. And it breaks my heart, because they're like going, where is an organization for women leaders?
Right.
And so I do refer them to Global Women's Leadership Network, because that's they do about leadership. But then they want to have this conversation, like, are women talking? Where do they get to do that when it's only women? Because I have examples of conversations from smaller credit unions on a council forum where the conversation wasn't as embracing. You could see that the language is different. There's a why didn't you, or why are you? And when a question is posed to a member in Basecamp, it's like, gosh, you know, I've seen the same thing. Have you thought about, or this is how I handled it. It's just the language is so different.
Yeah. Well, it does seem like that there, you know, we talked about why CUWLA was successful, and one of the big reasons is there was a need for it, right?
Mhm.
Well, it sounds like there's also a need for something, some sort of, you know, support system for that next level. And it's really exciting that you're thinking about that. I mean, there's a lot of sort of strategic reasons why it makes sense for CUWLA to have a
Right.
focus on that next level, because it sort of is, you know, it's going to continue to sort of populate the membership as those CEOs
Right.
retire and
Right.
as those people take steps up into that CEO role. But you know, those folks in those lower roles, I guess you could say, like, they need support too, and they have their own unique challenges. And so to create sort of a support system for them, I mean, it does seem like it makes a lot of sense. So I
It's a
wish you the best of
win-win,
luck.
Tom.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's a
yeah, yeah.
win-win. I mean, the business case is pretty obvious, right? I mean, you know, in order for CUWLA to assist our members to assist smaller credit unions around sustainability, because ultimately that was our driving mission, right? CUWLA has to be sustainable. I mean, we can't do the work, right? And in order for that to happen, we have to grow. And
Right.
so, so there's the business case, and then there's, of course, the case of, you know, what we can, and we've got organizations, credit union partners that are like, well, how can we get involved? So then do we create an association piece,
Right.
right?
Right.
And help support women who run, like the Barb Lomans of the world, who has been a great credit union CUWLA friend. She
Hmm.
facilitates our conference every year, and she's a very strong voice. She's like, you know, you should add an association. We're like, okay, again, there's one Linda. I could see Linda in the corner.
Natural person
Oh my
credit
God.
union.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She's great, but she's not Superwoman, right? So, but those are all the things that we, you know, we're an organization with purpose. We are very focused on our members. We're very focused on growing the organization, but we're also super cognizant of the business and being
Yeah.
around and growing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not super surprising to me, because you know, you are all leaders of successful credit unions, right? I mean, I think that's one thing that really stands out to me now, in particular, because you know, I'm associated with the Native American Credit Union Coalition, which is a group that's forming to support Native credit union professionals, but
Love
also
it.
credit unions that serve Native communities. And they don't have as many leaders like at the CEO level, or you know, at that level as you guys did. And I think that's something that was a huge advantage for you, because you had a lot of people who were great, really, smart business people, CEOs that got shit done. I mean, it was like just this, the founders group in particular was just like
Yeah.
this really talented group of people.
Yeah.
And, I think that was one of the biggest differences for you. Okay, so this
Agreed.
went by way faster than I thought it was going to go, but of course, that's how it always happens. I want to cover two more things, and that is the annual conference for 2025. Just give us a little bit of details on that. And also the reception at GAC, for those of you who are going to be at GAC, can you give us a little details on that as well?
Well, so the reception at GAC, so I'm glad you brought that up, because one of the things that our differentiator is than the other organization, the affinity groups, is that there's only one person in the crediting that can belong to CUWLA currently, and that's the CEO. And so with that, our member meetup, our reception at GAC is really geared towards our members, because they only get to see each other at GAC or on their monthly meetings virtually or at the conference. However, this year we're co-hosting it with your crediting partner and your marketing company, because we have found that, the number of people they have at their reception, half of them are CUWLA members. So they're dashing from our reception to their reception. So we're going to do that collectively. The other side of that is that, unlike NALCUP or ACUC or CU Pride that have really large venues for their receptions, we're not like that. So, it's just like, come on, bring your 10 people, because we really want our members to have that opportunity. So we're super excited about that. Members have been invited. If you are somebody that's listening to this, that you are somebody that has done work with us, let me know, because if I forgot you, right? And we can't do those sponsored, any of that without sponsors. So we were co-hosting it with the two organizations. And then Volcor and Symphony is one of our business partners that sponsors us at our conference. And they are also a sponsor with our reception. So that's really super awesome. So that's going to be Sunday night. And those invites have gone out, and we'll see you there. So yay.
Okay, of course I'll be there. Same time, same place.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. All right. I don't
Which
know if
is
you
when
wanna.
and where, Linda?
No, I don't want everybody and their brother coming.
Oh,
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
You
yeah,
have
we need
to
to
RSVP.
register.
Yeah.
You can't
Okay,
just walk in the
we had
door.
lots of shrimp
Yeah.
left over last year, but I was
We
telling
did.
them to put it
But
in
we-
your purse.
So
Take
we
it up
do
to
it,
your
and we
room.
do it at the Residence Inn, because
Yeah.
CUWLA is the organizations, we're able to have it at that
Yeah,
site.
good point, though.
Yeah, which is
Yeah.
People
yeah.
need to register.
And then
Yeah.
our annual conference is going to be in Savannah, Georgia. So that's for members only. But this year with our keynotes, we are letting sponsors attend the keynote sessions, because in the past, the entire conference was only members. But as we've grown and the expectations grown with having sponsors on site, they can now hear the keynotes, because whoever sponsored them was able to attend and introduce them and whatnot. But now we're going to let all sponsors, because we have an amazing keynotes this year. Lakita Clear, if anyone was at World Council and heard her at the Global Women's and White Cup, the young professionals, the two groups. She's an amazing speaker. We're super excited. Me and Lily were texting each other. Oh my God, we have to have this woman. And I'm so excited. And then we have, this year we're adding something new. Instead of having a keynote on Tuesday, we're gonna have a closer. So Lakita will be our opening keynote on Monday morning. And then we have Allison Horton, who is going to be our closing speaker on Tuesday afternoon. And she was recommended to us by Terry Robinson and I think Denise Wymore. Love her. The energy's there, and we will have a great takeaway. And I can't wait to start getting people to sign up for that. Savannah, Georgia, and I'm going there after GAC to check out the venue in person. We have the venue, and then where we're going to have our banquet on Monday night for the coaching cohort, which is so cool. If you watch Ozark, big old boat, that's where we're looking to have our reception, our Monday night banquet.
Okay, and what are the dates of it?
September
Yes.
21st to the 23rd. I talk really
September
fast. I know I said it.
Yes. I don't know.
You didn't. I've been listening, waiting.
Yeah.
Play it back, Tom. Play it back.
When he plays it back, he's here. I said September 21st to 23rd, Savannah, Georgia.
Okay.
Right. And then I'll edit that part out where Lily and I both said it. Wait, what's the date again?
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much for sharing the details on those events. Congratulations on all the success with CUWLA. Keep up the great work. We are all rooting for you, especially us here at Your Credit Union Partner. Thanks for joining the Credit Union Nation podcast. It was a pleasure having you both on. Let's do this again soon. And thanks very much.
Thanks, Tom.